So following up on the franchise list, my next favorite movies is going to have to be Back to the Future. All three of these movies are just phenomenal and well done, and hugely entertaining. Especially the first one. The first one will forever be a classic. And this is one that I definitely would quote a lot with my friends. The next trilogy following up Back to the Future is definitely a special one from my childhood, and that's going to have to be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. All three of these movies I watched when I was a kid, and I loved every single minute of them, from 1 to 3. Ninja Turtles will forever hold a special place in my heart. Next up on the list is going to be Austin Powers. So I have all three movies because I love all three of these movies because Mike Myers did a phenomenal job writing these movies and playing the characters as Austin Powers, Dr. Evil, Fat Bastard, even Goldmember. And these are comedy movies which me and my buddies do quote a lot. This would definitely hold a special place in my heart forever too. Next up is going to be the remake of The Producers. Now, I never saw the original one, but this one I have rented one summer with my family, and when we watched it for the first time, we could not stop laughing, and we could not stop quoting every single scene from this movie. Me, my mother, my sister would always watch this one together, and we know what's coming, so we always crack up when that part comes up, and we always just quote this movie a lot. And there are times where I bought the soundtrack and actually listened to the music from this movie because I enjoy the music as well. Next up is going to have to be Anchorman. And this was one of Will Ferrell's best roles as Ron Burgundy. And when I saw this movie, I could not stop laughing. The unexpected singing scene and the whole news battle scene, those crack me up all the time. Next up is going to be Hot Rod. The reason why I like this movie a lot because it's made by the guys who did Lonely Island, Andy Samberg and his buddies. When I first saw this movie, I could not stop laughing. My family could not stop laughing either because there's so many unforgettable parts in this movie and there's so many parts that we always quote a lot. Next up is Beerfest. This film, when I saw it for the first time, I could not stop laughing because it was so funny. This movie is definitely the best beer drinking movie ever. Because when I watch this movie, I always have a beer with me, and I know what's coming, so this is a movie I definitely quote a lot too. Following that, we're going to have Paul. In this movie, when I saw it in theaters with my two friends, me and my friends were just howling with laughter when we saw this movie. Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, these two buddies in the movie, they do a lot of great movies together, but this one is definitely hysterical because it's Seth Rogen playing an alien, and there's so many sci-fi movie references in it, but this movie is just hysterical. Following that, I'm going with Grown Ups. I know a lot of people do hate Adam Sandler movies, but this one I think is definitely one of his best movies because it has everybody in it. It's got Adam Sandler, Kevin James, David Spade, Chris Rock, and even Rob Schneider together for the first time. When they did this movie together, I thought there's so many funny parts, and there's a lot of jokes that I would get, but a lot of people younger than me wouldn't get it at all. Following that, we're going to have the very first Hangover. Now, I saw this one in the theaters, and I thought this was one of the greatest comedy movies ever. Even when it first came out, everyone was quoting it. Even I was quoting it with a lot of my friends because we know what was our favorite parts. Next up, following The Hangover, we're going to have a movie that really changed my life forever. And that movie is The Rocker. I know this isn't a great movie, but it's still fun and enjoyable to watch. It is funny too. And this is definitely a breakout movie because there's so many famous people that were in this movie that weren't famous back then, but they are famous today. And this movie really inspired me to put videos on YouTube and do the whole music career too. Following The Rocker, we're going to have Tropic Thunder, and this is one of the greatest comedies ever made. Ben Stiller directed this movie, and he also starred in it, and he was pretty funny in this movie too, but really Jack Black and Robert Downey Jr. stole this movie because they were so good. Even Tom Cruise really stole this movie because he was so funny in his role. This is definitely a movie that I would quote a lot too. Following that, we're going to have Blockers. This movie is so funny. Definitely if parents watch this with their teenage kids, they would definitely get a kick out of this one. Following that, would be Game Night. Now this was definitely something different that I'd never seen before because it's a thriller comedy, but me and my fiance watch it together and we cannot stop laughing because we know our favorite parts are coming. And we do quote this one a lot too. Following that is definitely one of the greatest comedies of its time, which is Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Now this movie really did change my life forever when I first saw this in 8th grade. Like, there are so many parts which I could not stop laughing at, and this is definitely a movie that I quote a lot with my buddies. Like, me and my friends, when we all saw this movie together, we just cannot stop quoting it because there's so many unforgettable lines and parts in this movie. Following that would be Caddyshack. When I saw this movie for the first time, I could not stop laughing because there's so many funny parts. And this is definitely a movie that I would quote a lot too with my parents. Like, me and my parents watch this together, we just start laughing at all our favorite scenes in this movie. Following Caddyshack is going to have to be The Mask. Now, in my opinion, I think this is definitely Jim Carrey's best role. Because in this movie, it's everything you love about Jim Carrey. Like, when he is The Mask, he's hysterical. But when he's Stanley Ipkiss, he's like kind of more serious. But this is definitely a movie that I would quote a lot with my friends too. Following The Mask would be The Sandlot. The Sandlot was definitely a childhood movie of mine, and this will forever hold a special place in my heart. I watch this movie every summer, and this is definitely a movie that I would quote a lot too. Following The Sandlot is going to be So I Married an Axe-Murderer. So following Austin Powers, this is my other favorite Mike Myers movie. Like, this is definitely a movie that I would quote a lot, and I do enjoy watching this one too. Following So I Married an Axe-Murderer is going to be Rat Race. Now, when my family and I saw this for the first time, we were on the ground laughing because this movie is so ridiculously funny. Because if you love slapstick, this is definitely the movie for you. So Rat Race will definitely hold a special place in my heart, and this is definitely a movie that I also quote a lot too.